Come on, so excited today because we're back with Sibling Speaks, and we're going to actually be talking to this amazing mom who has raised siblings. There she goes, Tammy. Hey, let's get her on here. Let me invite her to join us. Hi, everybody. Come on in. Tammy, I just sent you an invite.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good. You're teaching me new things here, Janice, because I've never been live
What?
on Instagram. I'm always on YouTube or on Facebook, and so I'm like, oh, how do I do this? And I don't use my big computer, so you're making me step outside the box.
Yay.
That's what this is all about, right? Learning from each other.
Yeah.
Learning from each other.
Well, we are so glad to have you on here today. What time is it over where you were at?
I'm an hour behind, so it's a little bit earlier. So it's 7
Okay.
o'clock. Yeah. I have this all like literally, I have things like stacked up on top of each other. So while everybody joins, give me a minute while you
You're good. You get situated. We're letting everybody come on in. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Joining us live. I don't have it anymore. I have my daughter here. She's asking for more food. So excuse me.
Oh, no, that's fine. That's normal. That's very, very normal.
All right. We will get ready to get started. Go ahead and get a snack, Rose. You want to say hello, Raymond?
Hello.
Everybody.
It's one of the siblings in my tribe. Say hi.
Hello.
Hello, I got dreads.
Yes, you're growing dreads. There we go. There you go. That's why.
All right. I'm going to be more prepared next time. I'm going to do a phone stand. I got an iPad here. It does work on the iPad, so that's awesome.
That's good to know. I didn't know that. See?
Mm-hmm. Yes, except you just the position of it, and you can't flip the other way.
Ah, okay.
You have to stay vertical instead of horizontal, which makes it a little more difficult in a stand. But we're good.
All right. Well, let's get started then.
Okay.
Well, welcome, everybody. You're joining in. We're Sibling Speaks Live. We're discussing parents raising siblings. I'm a parent. Miss Tammy Flynn over here is a parent. I'm gonna let her introduce herself because she is a dad, and she wears so many hats, y'all. So I learned so much from her. But go ahead, Tammy, introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are.
Thank you so much, Janice, and I feel so privileged to be here tonight. My name is Tammy Flynn, and most importantly, I'm the mother of 4 and the grandmother of 1. So those are the best and the top titles for everything. I would say that I would be called a serial entrepreneur, but I'm a mompreneur, I'm a caregiverpreneur, and all things. So I own a brick and mortar business, as well as I have the On-Air Advocate platform, which our platform is there to serve, educate, advocate for those, for special needs parents, caregivers, as well as those with different abilities, mental and medical illnesses, and chronic illness as well. And so that I have had now, you just celebrated 4 years. That was yesterday that we've had the show. And so since then, we've done about 320 interviews with different doctors and people from all over the world. So it has been amazing, an amazing journey of meeting so many, because as a special need parent for the last 24 years, what I know is that we learn the most from each other. In anything that we do, we really do. And so being able to bring together people from Kenya and from Europe and from the United States, and all of these parents, as well as medical professionals and organizations that serve, into one platform has really been able to serve as a great educational, tool for all to, learn from one another.
You are amazing. And we we were grateful enough that you invited us on a couple years ago when we first met. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to have you over here with us, being able to share on our platform and
Yeah.
share experiences. And congratulations on 4 years. That is phenomenal. Like over 300 episodes. I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
I can't
I think
get
we're
to
at
where.
about like 320. And actually this coming January, what's exciting is we're going to kind of pivot a little bit, because I'm putting out some digital courses for
Okay.
parents on advocacy and different training tools, for them to go more class, things that they can do in a structured format, for educational purposes. And so I'm going to also add on to the podcast that we're going to be doing like 10 minutes a week of just education and tools and strategies for special needs parents, so that it's very specific, for that, because obviously, as you know, we do tons with different chronic illnesses and whatnot, but I want to make sure that every week that we're sharing for caregivers and for special needs parents some of those own personal even tools and strategies that we need to learn.
And we need them. I mean, like, especially with something in the trench and
Yeah.
knowing where to go to access information. It's just so nice. You guys have to follow her, the on-air advocate. Go find her on YouTube, find her on Facebook, friend her, follow her. She's absolutely amazing, and you will love her just as much as I do.
Oh, Janice,
I love you.
I love you too.
So let's talk. Like, okay, so let's get into the nitty gritty. Y'all know we have candid conversations over here. We like to, if you have questions for Tammy or myself, feel free to drop them in. Feel free to put them in the question box if you want to ask anonymously, and we can definitely see that and be able to answer your questions. This is a transparent and judgment-free zone, number one. So, I just want to, we put that out there. We are all on a journey. We're all trying to figure it out. Nobody knows everything. So I'll let that go there. And so you said you had a mom of 4. How old are your kids? Let's talk.
My oldest is actually going to be 30 in January. My next down from that turns 29 in June. Next down from that is my son that does have different abilities, and he just turned 24 this last month. And then my youngest, the baby, is 22 years old. And then my grandson will be 7 years old next month.
You are busy, mama.
Yes. But
what you call grandma, what?
Oh no, I'm fine with grandma. Like some people are like, because I am, a little bit of a younger grandma. They're like, oh, you want to be called grandma? I'm like, you know what? You got the journey, you got 4 kids, you feel like you've lived 100 lives. It's fine. Whatever. It's fine. I don't need a special title to make me feel younger, because I think that if we don't accept and appreciate our age, the journeys we've traveled, I mean, that's where all of our wisdom comes from. We're so much wiser. So I'm happy to age. I'm happy to be a grandma.
Well, you're beautiful. We're very well.
So it's just fine.
So what is it? Okay, so your third oldest is the one that has a disability.
Right.
Yeah. So what was that like? What was that like? Because he had older siblings and he has younger siblings.
Yes.
So experience myself.
Yeah, and I mean, I love, Janice, that you started this out with saying about being so transparent, because on obviously my structured platform that I haven't really branched off into giving all of my own tools and tips all the time and experiences. In transparency, obviously you have 4 children, and I always say life happens, right? Is that when we say, okay, we have a child that has chronic illness or that has special needs, and we're talking about it on shows, you're listening to people, you need to remember that real life happens. And so in those households there may be multiple children, and those children may have their own, because I feel like every child has their own needs, right? We as adults have our own needs. Then we add into that 50% of marriages, I'm saying, are in split families. Then you have blended families, and you have all of this. So sometimes I think that when we just focus on the child, it's like all the things that are also going around there. And then we look at jobs and, employment and money and finances. And so the journey for myself and sibling and all the kids has been difficult, because I have been a single mom for the majority of that. And so What I can say is, so my third child, Marcus, that was born with different abilities. I didn't know that he was going to have any chronic medical conditions. I didn't know anything ahead of time. And when he was born in the hospital, I hemorrhaged when I was giving birth. And all of a sudden, in like that first 24 hours, life turned upside down, where, he was jaundiced, he had this, but then he was kind of lethargic. He wasn't behaving in the right manner. He wasn't sucking, so he wasn't taking in food. And then in the first 3 days of life, he had an infection, and it just went on from there. It was like a hurricane, a typhoon, I don't know, and a tornado all put together. Because at that point, I still had, I have my two older girls, which at the time were like 5 and 6 years old. So I was still a working mother. Taking them to cheerleading and taking them to dance and having to run them around. And now Marcus was born, and he was so sick.
Yeah.
And the doctors at first, he was so sick with illness that they missed that there was anything that must have happened in utero. So literally, to make about a 10-hour story short, because I'm known for, I could stretch a story on for a long time if you let me. It wasn't until he was 3 years old, after doing multiple biopsies, genetic testing and whatnot, that we found out that he actually had an insult to his brain in utero. So he had what's called encephalopathy. So he had nerve breakage in his brain, which caused him great global and cognitive delay. And they felt at the time when he was first, like a year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, they didn't know if he'd ever walk, talk, eat, or do any of those things on his own. And Janice, from knowing Marcus does all those things. So, so that is, what I was told at that time. But then there was all this medical illness. And so I think that sometimes for parents in that, it wasn't just that he was home and he had these needs at home and just needed therapy. He became, I like to say, like, we're hospital hustlers. Like, we live at the hospital, where he has all of these different chronic illnesses, about 20 of them. And, they rear their head every other month, and we're at the hospital every week. And this has been for 24 years. And so, I think what was the hardest thing in the beginning was trying to get a grasp on things as a parent. I mean, when I had my son, I was young. Okay. Yeah. So though I was extremely mature for the age that I was like, what is going on? Every doctor was like, saying this and saying that. You were getting mixed messages from everyone. And really in the background, luckily that my first two were girls, right? Because they have that nurturing nature about them where they wanted to help. Before he was born, they went to the mommy and me classes and how they were going to help and all of that. So in his illness, they were very concerned, always, worrying and trying to be that helper. Shortly after he was born, before I knew the significance and that there was a chance that this might be somewhat genetic, there could be more to come if I had, another child and whatnot. I had gotten pregnant. So my Marcus and my youngest Dre they're 20 months apart. My girls are 18 months apart. So, at that point, I was already pregnant with him, going to have him when we were in those trenches. Yeah. And so I would say for my girls' experience was a lot more of that nurturer. Yeah. The whole time that they were home, always watching out, always caring, but always feeling like they didn't want to put any more pressure on me. For those beginning years, for about the first 6 years, I did have a spouse. So that, contributed, but that, like I said, the good, bad, and the ugly, right? That didn't mean that it was a good marriage, and it didn't mean that it didn't add even another layer of stress and all of that. And I think in all of that mix up, I think what sometimes people forget is that you have your child, you have the kids, but everybody still has to go to work and has to make their marriages work and has to do all of that. And so the kids feel that, And so my girls very much, for the majority of the time, took on, when they were young, the caregiver role, the helper role. And then when my son Dre was born, and this, I don't make up any of these stories. So he was born on 9/9 of 99. So I knew he was going to be special. he came out like almost 10 pounds, a full head of hair, and like ready to take on the world. And so when he was born, was at the point, Marcus was almost 3, still wasn't walking, wasn't moving. So here I have Marcus, I'm trying to get him in the stroller and he can't walk. And then I got the baby carrier and we're at therapy 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And Dre tagged along. And you know what? He was very much, and you say this obviously in no judgment, very much in the shadows. I feel like God blessed me with him in the sense that he just knew. It was like he had this sense of knowing. At a year old, he was eating. He was no longer like he had a spoon, you know. He was 40 pounds at a year old. Is that not crazy? That's at the time, you know, Marcus was in toileting therapy, which didn't work till he was 10 years old. Wow. But we were in this toileting therapy. So I had all these potties that were in the bathroom. And so Dre, every time we'd go, every 3 hours, I'd put Marcus on. Dre would toddle behind, and he was walking at a year old. He'd toddle behind, and literally one day, I'm faced this way, he pulled down his diaper thing, and he sat on the little potty behind me, and he went. Wow. And I'm joking with you. It was all done. It was all done. And so I do not think if it wasn't for that, I don't really know, because there was so much, you know, hospitalizations and being there. But I think that I got older. I mean, it got harder as my children got older, because the amount of time that I need to spend with Marcus, that didn't change. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That didn't change for the last 24 years. But my kids, they grew. And they got other activities and they wanted the attention. And then being a single parent and them, my other children seeking out like, Mom, hello, like we're here. We know you have to be at the hospital with Marcus. And then this guilt from them, and especially from my youngest Dre has experienced, you can just even see it in him, as Marcus went through major surgery. So in 2016, Marcus needed a full spinal fusion. And because he has a connective tissue disorder and a bleeding disorder, you know, there was a high risk that something very, very tragic could happen. We were in the hospital for weeks. And, you know, at that time, Dre he was like in 8th grade. Mm-hmm. And he couldn't even bear to come there those first couple days because he was in so much pain. And though he felt, let me find the words to articulate, he feels guilty that he can't take away his brother's pain. Yeah. And he wishes it was him, and he wishes he could do something because he knows that Marcus can't. But on the other end of it, he resents him for no one being able to be there. You know, and I can tell you that he's 22 years old and that struggle is still there. Like in the heartbeat, he will be there and defend and love his brother. Marcus was just in the hospital a few months ago, had an emergent pancreatitis and his gallbladder removed. And the first person at the hospital was his brother outside. You know what I'm saying? And was at the urgent care, then followed us to the hospital. So always there, but that always inside, like the one half feeling like, why didn't I get any of this? You know what I'm saying? Let me take his pain. I could deal with it better. But then on the other side of it, like, well, you're him. You're always with him. You're always doing stuff. When are you going to come and see my things? You know? And so I can say that I made a valiant effort no matter what, for all my kids' sporting events, all the things they did, to be there. Yeah. It might have been a little bit of a mess, and I might have been working because, you know, I had, and that was the other thing, is like the work didn't stop. Right. You know, so it's like bringing your
don't stop, nothing stops. Like everything
right. Mm-hmm.
going on.
And I would say as my girls got older, you know, all those things that you get to do, the going shopping, and I see you do this, Janice, like trying to make those special days, you know, the special days to do things with your kids. I think that's so important. And if you have those supportive units around you to be able to do those things, to be able to take your kids out for their own private lunch or their own shopping experience, to make them feel like they are so special is so important. I look back, you know, unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of people, especially when you have multiple children, that would take all of them to do that. In addition, I was the breadwinner. So how do you support 4 children and still be able to do all those things? And then we come to parent guilt, right? The parent guilt, and then you're like, okay, fine, you can have this. Okay, so well, but then that's not always the answer, right? Either is giving your kids all the other kids the things they want, because you feel bad that you can't, you know, that you can't be there. I've really tried as my kids have aged, because I know one day I won't be here, you know, and they know already, I guess, my thoughts on, you know, because I am an advocate. I'm an advocate in my community. I'm a patient advocate at a hospital and doing all that, the quality of care for different centers and places as individuals with different abilities can live, you know, and putting them different in, you know, their own apartment living or things like that. And for many that know me, I don't care for many. You know, because they will never love and care for your individual the way that you will. And so my kids know that, but I have been very, very cognizant since my daughters like went off to college. And, you know, my youngest, he went to tech college. He's a diesel mechanic and he has his job, to not put anything on them right now. So since they have been 18, you know, since they've been out of the house and doing their thing, I really have tried to let them live their life and not be like, okay, well, I need you to come and do this. I need you to come and do that, because I want them, I don't want them to ever feel like, oh, well, I can't have that experience, or I can't do that because I need to do this with my sibling every week. You know, as I'm here and I'm able to do it, I want to take that off of them and let them, I don't want them to worry. I don't feel like I should stop what I'm doing because, you know, we're at the, you know, hospital. I mean, obviously they visit and things like that, but you know what I'm saying? For them to be able to spread their own wings. And I think that's so important. I would have to say, as Marcus has gotten older, you know, he was in Special Olympics and in all the sports. His siblings came to watch him, you know, and they came to be supportive to all of those things. And he had to do the same, you know, he would go sit at all of their things as well for stuff. But I can tell you that, you know, when you talk about like lessons learned, you know how you talk to your kids all the time about, you know, our differences, right? And accepting those things, but you never really know. I mean, you know how they are with their sibling, right? But you never know when they go into the real world by themselves, what decision they make. Would they be kind? Will they pass that on? Have you, you know what I'm saying? Have you instilled this in them? Have they seen it enough? And there was one day my son was on, it's called Tops Basketball, which is another like a special needs basketball team. And we were there, and there was a bunch of, they were all like junior and seniors in high school that had different abilities. And my daughter, my oldest at the time, you know, just beautiful, all made up to sit at the basketball game. And she's sitting there, and one of my son's friends, literally, he was probably like 170, 80 pounds, comes running up to her. He's like sweating. He's sweating. And, you know, he loves everyone. Oh, your son is waving in the background. And he comes running up to her and he sits on her lap. She doesn't know him. Okay, so here is like a senior in high school, 170-pound man sweating, and sits on top for hug her. And he's like, I love you, I love you. And my daughter hugged him back and told him he was doing a great job. And I'm going to cry, because at that moment, I knew that she knew, you know what I'm saying? Not, ooh, this is gross. Oh my gosh, there's this big man sitting on top of me. You know, that all of the time, you know, being in a family and surrounded by those differences, you know, had really become a part of them, you know. And the same thing in high school. I live in an area where actually I moved I moved 50 miles one way away from all my family for my son to go to a specialty school. When he started there when he was in 6th grade. And the school has a medical triage center in it, 3 PT centers, 3 OT centers, $1 billion aquatics center. And it's only for those with different abilities, ages 3 to 21. So I moved our life, but he had the opportunity that if I wanted to do the full, the IEP, that he could have integrated to the regular high school. And all of my children came to me together and they said, Mom, we don't want him there. We don't want those. They pretend, like my children were schooling me on the way others pretend to act in high school, the way others act to some of the other children that are there. And they're like, we wouldn't ever want him to be, you know what I'm saying, in that situation. So, I can't say, like I know sometimes on Instagram, on Facebook, we have highlights, right? It's the highlights of the best time, like we're here and this is great. But I'm telling you, there have been a lot of tears and there have been a lot of struggle and a lot of, I feel it's that guilt / anger. I mean, what would be the word? Not anger. Guilt / like the jealousy, you know what I'm saying? Because they feel guilty that why does he have to go through all of this? And I love my brother and I don't want him to go through on the other end of it. It's, well, why aren't you paying attention to me? Why am I not getting that same level?
Yeah. And I found that a lot. I mean, honestly, since I began the organization, when I started this, when the kids were Jada and Caleb, I was pregnant with the twins, so they're 6 now, and Jada and Caleb are 13 and 14. So they were probably like 6, 7 years old. I'm not really good at math right now, but they're like back there. But seriously, like before they were like really involved, like in that caregiver, like always at the appointments and now age mode. And me, like I need you to like pay attention to me. And we've been clashing a lot. And I like hearing you talking about your kids and like hearing these stories and stuff is like, okay, don't lose hope. That's what I hear. Like, don't give up on your kids. Like, it's not always going to be easy. And, they're not always going to like each other. And they're not always going to like you. Because sometimes they're like, Mom, just get away from me. But you really feel that. I feel that guilt sometimes. I feel heavy and I feel like, am I doing enough? Like I started an organization, I'm trying to do stuff and I feel like I'm feeling the kids that my why. Like, what am I doing here? What am I doing and why am I doing it? But the more I hear and the more they connect and they share, they talk to other siblings and they're like, they get each other and they realize like, okay, I'm not the only one that feels like that. And to feel like this, like I do feel jealous. You're at the hospital with Christian for a whole weekend, so you missed my recital, you missed this appointment, you missed all things. There's literally nothing I can do. And when you talk about split households and co-parenting and maybe not even co-parenting because even there for a part of the time, it's like these are all layers, and these are all layers that affect not just me as a mom, but the kids. And they're watching us and how we respond and interact and how we handle these situations. And so I didn't even have that experience with, your son's friend and to be able to share in that moment with him and not like feel any type of way. That's such a powerful, says a lot about how you've raised your kids, like how they've been just watching you and how you interact with somebody else that comes in contact with you. So I'm just encouraged, like hearing you and you being transparent. Thank you for sharing. It's not easy stuff to talk about. And it's not the pretty people like to talk about.
No, because I don't think that they're like, I mean, I love that like you've created this organization, that there are other organizations. When my girls were little, there was only the UCP, which is so interesting. So in our whole state, the United Cerebral Palsy, which at the time, Marcus wasn't even diagnosed with cerebral palsy, but he has cerebral palsy. Okay. But they were like the respite hub center that one time a month, because you have to think my daughter's going to be 30, right? So this was so many years ago, I mean, 24 years ago. all they had was one time a month that siblings could come and do like a game night together. There was nothing online. Like when Marcus was born, there was nothing online. And that's why when I first started the Honor Advocate, I said, going beyond the brochure, because this is what happened. You know, like when he was born, they were like, I don't know who can relate, who's watching, but here you go. Here's your brochures. Call these places. I'm like, what? What am I even supposed to be asking? I don't even know
Right.
what question to ask anybody with this. And so, you know, now I feel like between Facebook groups, you do things with like meetups, you know what I'm saying? And having, you know, families have activities and, you know, parents sharing like this. I think the journey for siblings will even be, it'll be such a better experience, you know, than where my kids were at with that. I can also tell you and give you hope that even if, because my kids, they're really hard on their brother. Okay, let me tell you, they don't let him get away with nothing. So it's not like they're like, oh, Marcus. No, they're not like that to him. But all of their friends, you know, growing up, my house I felt was like I don't know, like a foster home. Like I just always had boys, girls, all of their friends like were in our house. But their rule was if they had any friends that would not talk to Marcus, tolerate things, talk about things, and treat him like he was one of them, they were no longer their friend. So they didn't tolerate that. So they would yell at him and they would tell him he's annoying. But if anybody else would tell them your brother's annoying, well, that ain't acceptable. Nobody else can say it. Only they can say it as siblings.
That's sibling, but that's real sibling like life. I have, and that's exactly like I'll fight with them, but you can't fight them like that. Acceptable. So
yeah, most definitely. And I would, the other thing just encouraging is I'd have to say in those beginning years, and I'd even say right now, we have to admit as parents, and maybe there are some parents that aren't like this, but we're a little weaker in the sense, like we're strong, but because we love our children and we see them in pain, sometimes we're not as hard on them as we should. Sometimes we don't make them do that. And I do not think that Marcus would be as far along as he is with anything if his brothers and sisters wouldn't have been all over him. Because when I was like, he just got home from hospital, they're like, no, he's going to clean up with us. No, he's going to do this. And this was the boy the doctor said would never walk, talk, or eat on his own. And he does all of it. Yeah. And so I really always give them so much, I guess you'd say, props for their push, because they pushed him when I couldn't, you know, because it is such a hard thing, as you know, sitting at the hospital, seeing your child in pain, and then you're trying to be the reinforcer at the same time. Like we need to, you know, look at him. He's going to find you. He loves you, Janice.
I know.
I know. We got to have some kind of reunion party.
Yeah.
All together. So, you know, there definitely is hope in all things, you know, with siblings and all the things that you do, just make it even better.
I'm so glad to hear that. And I know our people that are listening in and watching, it's the truth. Like really, my kids, they'll tell me like, Christian can do that. I'm like, no, I'm not sure. And this was like a few years ago. I'm like, what you mean? Well, he does it when you're not here. He'll do it. Like if you're, he'll do it because I make him do it. And I'm like, so, okay, let me roll this back a little bit. Let me listen to the siblings. And I think that that's a big thing that sometimes parents, we have this, this complex that, we got everything together, we know everything, but sometimes our siblings can teach us stuff too. Like we can learn from the kids sometimes, even as they get older, and their interactions, and letting them learn to lead with love too. So they're not doing anything that's not out of love. They love their brother, they love their sister, and although they do not get along all the time, because right now they're like, every time they come around each other, they're like hitting each other or like trying to like push each other. I'm like, do I say something or do I stay out of this? I'll try and stay out of it.
No, but you should, because I'm telling you, that push is really what got me. Because I would be like, oh my gosh, it's gonna get hurt. Oh my gosh, he has stitches, because he always has stitches for something that's happening. No, this is gonna do this. And my kids are always like, lighten up. He's going to be fine. And, he has all these allergies. So even now I'm like, who's got the EpiPen? Who's got the first aid kit? They're like, seriously, we got it, Mom. Like, we're grown. We know. Like, fine. Let them live a little, so they do. They do help us. I mean, my kids, they have traveled this journey, but, also remembering that as a parent that that you have the feeling like you're going through the journey, you're in the long run, your kids are in that long run right along with you, and so just remembering that and remembering their behaviors and things like that. Sometimes, you have to remember, my sister always tells me, my sister's the calmer one about things, and she's always like, remember that the children that make the most noise are the ones that need to be loved the most. And so, she's like, when your kids are making noise, when they're doing things, they're just trying to make that alert, like with a flag, like, hey, I'm here too. Don't forget that I'm here too.
Some extra TLC over here. Like, I need a little bit of
Yes.
a lot of sense. It's gonna make me tear up. Now I'm all of them right now. Be like, you're mad at me, but you really love me, and I love you.
So I've gotten to the point where I'm just like, okay, I just need to love them more when they're doing these things. Like my daughters, when they got kicked out of school on the same day while I was working at the job, I own, like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't leave. I mean, I've had all those stories. You can't have 4 kids, and I mean, you have even more than that, Janice, without having a lot of stories.
Oh no. Oh yeah. Yep. I've gotten the phone calls before. I've gotten the, the principals, the letters, and I'm just like,
yes.
So I get upset. This is like, what do you guys want from me? How can I do this all at one time? But the truth is, like, I just love them really hard. And you're right, like, loving them harder. Like, that is so, I love your sister. I love her quote.
I know. She reminds me all the time. And, after when there's hospitalizations when they were young and stuff like that, that is usually when those behaviors even came out. Just like you were saying, you were gone just in the hospital just a short bit ago, and you missed those other things. So I'm certain that your daughter was so worried about her brother, like she loved him and she felt so scared for him, but at the same time was resentful, and I mean, I think there's this mix. And so siblings being able to get into a community like you have and being able to talk to other siblings that they can be like, yeah, you got that too. Yeah. I think that is such an awesome thing that I wish when like I said, my children were that age, there would have been something like that. Yeah. But it wasn't until my girls were almost through high school and almost onto their next journey,
right?
That things like this started to even evolve. Yeah. And be a thing.
Yeah. And that, I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful that you started your own network. And like, when I was in the hospital, I called you, like, I need help. They're not listening to me. Like, what is going on? Am I losing it?
Yes.
Knowing like, okay, if I need stuff like this, I'm sure the kids need a vent. Like, you need to just be able to let it out sometimes. Yes. And how that is to have a space, a sacred space. That's not like I'm being judged for feeling like this. Like, I can feel in this moment and still love and care about. And both feelings are valid, and it doesn't take away from either one of them. So
right. Yeah. Because I mean, I think that, I have heard just in different circles, other parents, like, pretending a name, like Billy's going through so much. Okay, well, your kids are also going through so much. So when you're continually telling your kids, like, you need to be this because of your brother, you need to be that because of your sister, you need to be that, your other kids, they're going through their own thing.
Right.
So, and I mean, I'm sure you've had this with your other kids. I mean, my other children have all been in the hospital for, broken arm, cracked open head, I mean, you're falling off of a bike. I mean, they all have their ailments, and they all have the right, to, they all have the right to have their own, I'm saying, feelings about it. And they really have to work through that guilt and resentment. Because that guilt stays with them. Like I said, my son was just in the hospital. All my other 3 children are moved out of the house. And literally my son, his friends raced to the urgent care, then followed us to the hospital and waited because they couldn't come in because of COVID till he was set. You know, so that is inside of them. They're young 21 and 22-year-old guys, but it's still the reaction of like, I need to be there for my brother. I need to do this, and that feeling. And so, you know, they have a right to feel both ways.
How do you, okay, I got a question, because you are a serial entrepreneur and you have your brick.
Yes.
The skin's good. You're drinking water, so I need to go find some.
I brought 2 of them here because, you know,
What does self-care look like for you? Like, we talking about caregivers. We just finished Caregiver Awareness Month. And, you know, the truth is, sometimes it's hard to put yourself first. But the kids, they're always watching us. So if we're not taking care of ourselves, what is reflected to them? Like, you know, how does that, you know, really affect our kids as they age, and how, if they ever become the caregivers, like how do I put a priority on myself? And so what does that look like for you? How do you take care of you?
Well, I would say that I've gotten better at it. You know, I've had like 2 decades to work on it. And I think that what is helpful also, and then I'll get into the strategies and things that I do, is the longer that you are in this space and that you're traveling the journey, kind of like we talked to each other when you were in the hospital, learning the strategies and the processes within the school system, within the hospital setting, and knowing how to appropriately get to the right people. Kind of, I feel like it saves taking 10 years off your life. You know what I'm saying? Because you're no longer talking to this person and talking to this person and talking to this person and talking to this person. You're zoned in on this is the process, and I know the chain of command and how to get my answers. I know what I need to do on that document for the state to get the answers I want to do, you know. And so I feel like that is extremely helpful for taking some stress off of us, hence why I'm putting together the course for that, because I think that it alleviates some of that. But I wasn't always as good at this, and especially having 4 little ones, because you have to think when Marcus was born, obviously all my kids were little, like they still were all little. It was like 6, 5, you know, newborn, and I mean, and then Marcus was 2.5, what was he, 20 months old, 1.5 years, and then a baby. So it was, and like you were saying, you're so funny, you're like, I don't remember all their ages, whatever age the kids were, I don't even know. Whatever age that they were. In that beginning time, like I said, it was like literally a hurricane mess. The things, I was not in a good marriage. I was working 3 jobs. I was working 3rd shift, like right after I came home from giving, you know, birth and doing this, and it's not a sob story, but you're not taking very good care of yourself. If you're not sleeping, you're like 24 hours not eating, you're working, and then you're at the hospital, you're not doing that. And actually it was when I was 27 years old. This is an interesting, I saw a picture of myself on my 27th birthday, and I just said, you're done, Tammy. Like, you're done. You are done not taking care of yourself. Because I was working and I was at the hospital, I just wasn't prioritizing eating the right food, putting, you know, granola bars in the car to eat, making sure there was a gallon of water in the car, and even doing the minute things that I could do for myself. I went from being like a normal size 8 to a size 22. I was 220 pounds. And I just saw myself just completely letting myself go, my health go, and I needed to rein that back in. And so that is what I did. And I spent 2 years, you know, taking it off. And luckily I've kept it off all these years. But that put me into better habits, not drinking energy drinks anymore, and not drinking soda, and not just living on dessert, because I do love desserts, and not taking my feelings out on food, and you know what I'm saying, and my sadness and in the hurt and all of that, because our health is really our wealth. Because honestly, it doesn't matter how much money you have, if you don't have your health, you really have nothing. And so really prioritizing that. And I was doing a good job. And then I was like, all right, so I got that all under control. And then I'm like, okay, I can do this. I got this and this and this. I'm going to open 2 more businesses. I'm going to do this and this and this and this. In 2014, I decided to do this tour. I got someone to watch the kids for a week, and I was going to nail out all these things. And you have to know that I was still a stressed out mom and all of that. And I came home off of a flight, and that evening I started to feel weird and sweating, whatnot. Long story short, my son found me, my youngest, non-responsive on the floor. And I spent a week and a half in the hospital, taken away on a gurney with my kids there. And I said to myself, self, you will never, I don't care if it's about work or jobs or having a better career or making more money, you will never push yourself that way. And when your body tells you, Tammy, you need to lay down, or as you saw, we had a lot of, sickness that has happened this year for us. Is the first time with the on-air advocate, I took 2.5 months off of doing no interviews. Do I know that, changed the equation of the pattern I was on? Yes. But I know now, and it took this long, right? It took like 2 decades for me to get it through my head that it doesn't matter what it is. If I feel like I need to lay down for a minute, even if that's laying down next to one of my kids, Marcus, whoever that is, if I need to sit down, if I need to cancel something, I'm going to do that. You need to listen to your body. I cannot tell you, my son, my youngest, when I woke up, as he was, because he thought that I didn't have a pulse because he didn't know how to take my pulse and all that stuff at the time before the ambulance got there, I woke up to him screaming, Mom, like that he thought I was dead. And I said to myself, how did I let myself get to this point, of not putting, like, yeah, I had lost that weight before, but did I really change my habits when things got big? Did I sit down? Did I ever lay down? Did I ever say to someone, hey, I'm sorry, I can't make this commitment and cancel it? I didn't. And now, since 2015, yes, I do. Do I try to, I'm a very, obviously, I've been a business owner my whole life. And so, yes, I think that you need to follow through and you need to be there, but doing it in a responsible way and just letting someone know, hey, I'm not feeling good, or I need to take a break. My family now, I'm very open. I literally will call my mom, my sister, and I'll be like, listen, I need an hour. I need 5 hours. I need something. So in the next 2 days, we need to find that, because I can feel those things mounting. So I guess that would be, to answer your question, accepting help and reaching out for it, which is a hard thing. It is a hard thing for us parents. Mm-hmm.
That is hard.
Mm-hmm. If somebody says, call me, because, a lot of times, especially as we see people show up on social media and we see all the good highlights, people always look at me and they're like, you're just so strong. You're just so strong. I'm like, I budget my crying. I mean, because, my brick and mortar business is a salon and spa. So, I can't go to work looking all like a hot mess. So I'm like, I budgeted. You know what I'm saying? You don't think that I have those moments, where you need to cry it out? Everybody does, and they're lying if they say they don't, but you have to accept that help. And you have to, for friends and family that can't read you, right? They see a smile here, they can't. You need to just call them and be like, okay, I'm telling you, I'm sad. I'm telling you, I'm sad and I need your help. Because we know as caregivers, this is the most it's so isolating. And COVID has made that isolation, explode even more.
It's been difficult. It's been so challenging. And removing that guilt from accepting help. Because you feel like you're burdening somebody, but they've already offered and they want to be there. And my mom says this thing, she says, my grandmother told her, you need to accept help so you don't block other people's blessings. People are trying to bless you and trying to give to you and to help you. And if you keep declining stuff from people and denying them this, and they're trying to give what's been given to them to give to you, you're blocking them. Like, you're not helping yourself. You're not helping them out. You think you're helping them out, but you're not. And limiting that is, but it is definitely challenging, especially if you're used to being independent or having everything falls on you. So, no people are still not going to be perfect. So they're not going to do like you do it. And it's okay. Like, some things are just going to get done differently. And I have to kind of release that, because that control can be like really.
Yes. You need to know when to ask for it, and you just need to ask for it, because especially when people in your family, friends, they view you as strong, they don't always know. You don't give off those indicators like she's falling apart. Like people every day, you're always just so together. I'm like, I don't know that that's really the truth, but okay. I mean, it just, you know, and I think that, you know, asking for that and knowing when to break and giving yourself the grace, taking moments, you know, and especially, you know, for parents as they're going to medical appointments, as they're going to school meetings, know that you don't have to have an answer that day. Know that every time you go to the doctor and you hear something, those are all emotions, and you need time to process those emotions. Never feel like you can't say to your doctor, you know what, we're going to come back next week and talk about this. I need to go home and process this. Or the school, we're going to finish this IEP in another few days. I'm not going to sign it. I need to go back and regroup. Like, never be afraid, you know, to speak up and use your voice and say those things, because the decisions that we make off of emotion a lot of time are not rational decisions. And so, but you can't discount that you need to go through that mourning process of whatever it is. You know, there is a lot of milestone mourning processes that have to happen. You know, when you get results and you hear things, that is a gut check as a parent, when you hear the next diagnosis, and you need to give yourself that grace, because, you know, you're in this, I always say you're in this for the long run, or I'm in this for the long run. And to be in it for the long run, like, you need to have a good pair of Nikes on. You need to have a full water bottle full of like grace and faith. And give yourself patience. You know, I remember as a young girl, my mom was always like, you don't have any patience. And I'm, well, Lord, he changed that now, didn't he?
He's like, we'll fix that.
Right, we will fix you. You know, so I mean, and you have to do it. And I know it's easier said than done, like, oh, you just sit down, but literally after that experience that we can have in the hospital, wearing a heart monitor, all of those things, if I'm feeling lightheaded, if I'm feeling like, oh, I just need something, I literally, it doesn't matter where a doctor's office, where we are, take my coat off, sit down, just take a break. Like, it's all right. If you're a minute late, it's okay. You know, if you have to cancel something, it's all right, because what's the alternative?
Yes.
You know, think about that as well. So yeah, I don't know.
You have been like such a gem. How can people find you? Tell everybody, how can they find you? Because I know we're coming up on an hour, and I can talk for like hours. So, you know, we have conversations. And I want to bring you back to tell us more about your self-care, like maybe some tips, and like, how could I get my right and everything.
I was going to do a class called Caregiver Cosmetics, like all the things you should have in your cosmetic bag when you go to the hospital. Like, we were just at the hospital. I slept there for a week, so I had to stay there. And literally the nurse was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm putting on my facial mask. Like, I'm going to be here. I mean, we're here all the time. It's fine.
We need that. So if you just come here and like tell me what we need, and so we can like figure that out, because that is definitely
no, that would be a ton of fun. A ton of fun. So if you want to follow me along on that special needs caregiver journey, if you're looking to hear from medical professionals, as well as, you know, myself, follow the podcast, all of that is found at onairadvocate.com. So right on our website, you can get to all of our services, supports we have there, as well as all of our social media. So that's probably the easiest way, you know, to find us, is right there at onairadvocate.com. If you're looking, once you're there, if you're looking to follow me on other platforms, which that's not what this show is about, beauty platforms and whatnot, you can just search my name, and then all of my businesses and those kinds of things will come up as well.
Awesome. And we'll definitely have all her information in the comments and all the captions. And so we'll tag her as well. So definitely follow her. Thank you so much, Tammy, for being here. Thank you for sharing your light with us and your life with us. I send all my you and all the kids, and Marcus, I see you on here. So hello.
wanted to say that because Marcus is on here. So we started a dog organization that Marcus does. So you guys should check that out. We give funds back to dog rescues and dog shelters, and Marcus makes an artistic portrait of all of our different dogs for you that gets sent off to you. So that's missionmarcus.com. So
missionmarcus.com.
yes.
We'll put that in there as well, so everybody will be able to find and locate.
He's been following us this whole time.
Yeah. Plug him. We got to do it. Well, thank you, Tammy. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, all right. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.